always from Dryden, born in Kenora but raised in Dryden. I went to Dryden High School and graduated right before I left. And yeah, tomorrow I'm leaving to go study nursing at Lakehead. The past year I spent living in Brazil with the Rotary Exchange program. And yeah. So I started my adventure pretty much in this room a year ago when I started with my other presentation. My city is shown there at the bottom. It's a really giant city. It's kind of like Winnipeg. It was the capital of the state of Paraíba. It's called João Pessoa. Don't let that line fool you. It was not a straight line traveling there. Some of you may have heard, I'm not sure. It took me about 3.5, 4 days to get there in airports. It's a lot of fun. Between bad weather, maintenance issues, running out of fuel, the whole bit, it took about 4 days to get there. And let's see. Yeah. So 24 hours I actually got to spend in Orlando. Almost went to Peru, didn't go to Peru. Stayed in Orlando. But it worked out really well. I actually got a hold of Rotary, and I was supposed to be there for 24 hours. So they had a really nice lady from Rotary who was there picking up other exchange students. And she actually picked me up from the airport, brought me to her house, and let me stay there for the night, which was amazing because I was supposed to be there with all my bags and everything. I don't know anything about Orlando. I don't know anything about the airport. And they took me around for the day and then took me back to the airport that night, and it worked out really, really well. I was really lucky. So finally, I arrived to the airport in my city. I had no idea who was going to pick me up from the airport. I thought maybe my brother, maybe my host mom. I showed up to that. I showed up, I walked through the doors. It had been 4 days through airports. I was shaking. And there's these people with balloons and streamers just screaming, and I forgot everything. I didn't even know how to say hi. I was like, that was interesting. So this was actually my first host family. It was just me and my host mom. She has a son, but he was actually going on his second exchange. His first one was to Finland, and this time he was going to the United States. So I only saw him for about 2 weeks. So it was me and my host mom, and I was actually there for the first 6 months of my exchange. So this is my room and my first host family. It's a little small, but it was good. It was my own area, and I don't know. That's my room. Pretty quick picture. That's just the view from outside of my window. It's really hard to see, but actually, in the end, it's actually the sea. So I was about a 3-minute walk from the coast, which was really amazing. Actually, in all of my families, I had 3 families during the year, and all 3 families, I was right next to the coast. It was about a 3-minute walk from all of them. So I was very, very lucky with my city that way. So right after I arrived, we were told about our orientation. And our orientation, we actually got to spend in this paradise. This is northeast Brazil. So hammocks are everywhere. You go to restaurants, there's somewhere with hammocks. You go to everyone's house, they have a hammock. That's a part of their culture. It's incredible. And it was amazing. So we stayed in these little huts with all the exchange students, and we all got put into groups of 3, and we stayed in our little huts, and the monkeys were running around on the roofs, and it was absolutely amazing. So this was my district. We were a lot of exchange students. There's about 60 of us, I believe. And we were a multi-district, so we had, I believe it was 3 districts combined. And so we got to spend our year with about 60 other exchange students, and we all got very, very close. It was incredible. Brazilian food is incredible. I can't really really say anything else about it. The fruit there, I have a pineapple at the top. The fruit is incredible. One of the things here is I always ate fruit. I thought it was amazing. I could live off of it. But then I went to Brazil, and it was just incredible. It was so sweet and so juicy. And you're sitting at school, and there's a mango tree hanging in the yard, and it's just everywhere. And you come home, and it doesn't even compare. Like, it's amazing.
Does it taste the same?
No, not even. So in the corner, it kind of looks like purple ice cream, but it's not. I guess it's a fruit. It's called acai, and the way that they make it kind of into a dessert, so it's kind of like ice cream, but it's not that creamy. It's got the texture of kind of like a smoothie almost, ground up fruit. And it is the tastiest thing. If you have ever been to Brazil, you are addicted to it. And it's the thing that everyone misses the most, but you can't bring any back because it will melt. So it's also the most heartbreaking thing. The little chocolates in the corner, it's one of the most common things you'll see every birthday party, every event. They have these little things. They're called brigadeiro. And it's basically condensed milk boiled with like a chocolate powder, like chocolate Nesquik powder. And they make it, and then when it boils, they let it sit, and then they roll it into balls and they put grapes in them and sprinkles on them and different kinds of things. And everywhere you go, they have them. They sell them on the street. They sell them everywhere. It's one of the biggest things about Brazil. Now, in the middle, that's actually a picture of one of my first lunches. That is a whole fish. It had eyes. Yeah, that was a surprise. Because every lunch you have rice and beans, meat and salad. That's it. Every day, your whole life, that's it. So the meat changes from time to time. That's what we got. I didn't quite know how to cut it or do anything with that, but we managed. And yeah, that's basically Brazil and Brazilian food in a nutshell. So obviously the weather in Brazil is a lot different than here. It's quite tropical. It's hot, like really hot. I never really saw it go lower than 29 degrees, which is amazing. When you're on the beach and you're trying to tan and all that stuff, it's incredible. But for regular life, when you're just trying to go shopping or you're trying to sit in school, it's actually horrible. And it's funny because here, when we think of a vacation, we think of that. We think of going somewhere hot and something like that. But for them, it's snow. They're like, oh, I've never seen snow. I've never heard of snow. Like, is it cold? So, yes, it's very cold. And so that's basically the life. They really adapt to the warm weather, and their culture is so warm. They're the warmest people you'll ever meet. You see them, if you showed up to something like this, you would walk in and you'd go around and give a hug and a kiss on the cheek to every person in that room before you sit down, and the same thing before you leave. Like, strangers, you can't go in an elevator and have another stranger walk in and not learn about their life, because they're gonna tell you. They're the warmest people. You'll be walking down the street, random strangers, they'll talk to you every time you go into a store. They know you're not from there. Like, I'm quite white, so I didn't necessarily fit into the tan culture. So as soon as I walked into anywhere, they wanted to know why I was there. And it's really incredible. You'll never meet another culture like that. The families, they stay together. If you're 30 years old, you're not married, you're still living at home with your parents. And that's normal. Okay. My presentation. Yes, so, and it's really normal. It kind of surprised me when my 35-year-old host brother was still living with his mom. But that's the way it is. If you're not married, you're with your family. And it's actually really nice because every weekend, the whole family gets together and they have barbecues, and everything's about family. It's incredible. So this was my school. It was a lot different. I tried not to go having expectations, but what I come from is Dryden High School, and it was a lot different from that. So I went to a public school in Brazil, and it really, even just the structure of the school wasn't the same. There was trees growing inside the school, and a lot of the hallways didn't actually have walls on the outside. There was the trees and everything. It was really quite interesting, but it was very hot. And you got sick a lot. Like, personally, I had a nose and throat cold all the time because it's 30 degrees outside every day. 6 o'clock when you're going to school, because it starts so early, it's hot. It's already 30 degrees. And you go into your classroom, they have the air conditioning at 18. So it is hot to cold, and you're doing that hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold every day, every building you go into, everything's like that. So that's really hard to get used to, because here we kind of keep everything pretty similar. In the cold, obviously, we'll have hot in our house, but it's a lot to get used to. And I always thought that when I left and went somewhere hot, I wouldn't have the winter cold because I'm missing winter. But I found it in every building I went into. And it's funny because when you go and you meet other countries and they learn about your country, you actually kind of find out the stereotypes that people think of your country. So you get all the funny questions like, do you ride your polar bear to school from your igloo? And do you have roads? And does Canada have electricity? And all that fun stuff. But it was funny because the one that always surprised me is that a lot of people think that Canadians really like Russia and the president. And it kind of confused me because I'd never heard that one, and I was like, I mean, I'm sure some people do, but I don't know. And it took me the whole year to figure out why people thought that. And during the year, meeting all these exchange students through all these trips, I kind of found out that if you ever get 2 Canadian people to meet anywhere in the world, 10 times out of 10, they will be talking about their absolute love for poutine. And nobody else in the world knows what poutine is, but they think you're talking about Putin.
Yeah.
So that went over well, because nobody really explains it. So that was fun. Moving on. So I went on 2 trips during my exchange. The first one was 28 days, and it was through the northeast coast of the country and then down all the way to Rio. And you're doing this whole trip on a coach bus. So basically you take 50, 55 exchange students, complete strangers from all around the world, and you stick them on a coach bus. And you say you better get comfortable because you're about to spend the next 28 days on this bus with them. So you start, and that was actually our bus. It's a double, there's seats down on the bottom and on the top. And it was incredible because you take 55 complete strangers from all around the world, different cultures, different languages, different everything, and you put them on that bus for 28 days, and you would not believe how heartbreaking it was at the end of that trip to say goodbye. Because those people will never be in the same space again. They're going back to their parts of we're all from different parts of Brazil, and then we're going all back to our countries, and you'll never get, some of them that you were very close with, you might go visit in their country, but you will never get those people together again. And even the boys, that night that we had to say goodbye in the hotel, some of us, I was flying out at 4:30 in the morning, the guys were bawling, they were crying. It was one of the most heartbreaking things that I realized, but it was the most incredible experience. So through this trip, we went through northeast Brazil where I was. It was the beaches, it was that part of the country. It was a lot of it was the coast. My city alone, I believe, has about 20 kilometers of coastline. So with the northeast trip, they go from the northeast and they hit all these big cities and these incredible beaches that nobody really knows about. So that was the main part of the trip, but we stopped in cities like Salvador. Up in the corner, that is one of my Mexican friends, Yusuf. And in Salvador, they have this balcony where Michael Jackson went and did a music video. And if you go there, and you can buy a Michael Jackson t-shirt, and they'll actually let you go up on the balcony that he made that video. And they have a little cardboard cutout that's a bit worn out. And they would let you take a picture with him. And It was incredible. Down in the bottom, that was in Rio. That was the most amazing piece of graffiti I've ever seen in my life. It is the world map with not all the flags, but a lot of world flags all around, and it's cut out, but it goes all the way down in a square, and it has people's names and all this stuff. It's the most amazing work I've ever seen, and all this stuff is all over Rio and Brazil. There's lots of graffiti, but it's absolutely incredible. So the last stop in this trip after 28 days was 4 days in Rio, which were incredible. You're excited for it the whole time. You have the movies on the bus, but you're not watching Rio until you're driving to Rio. Everyone was excited. And the last day you go there. So of course you have to go to the statue. You have to go to Christ the Redeemer. But there was so many other incredible places we went. You got to go into the favelas, and that's unheard of here. There's houses basically stacked on top of houses on hills, and just the culture of it. And in the bottom corner, that's actually, if you've heard of Brazil, you've heard of Carnival, and how they march down the streets with these elaborate floats, and they have the dancing and the music, and it's a huge thing every year. In Rio, they have a street where they march down. They have stands on the side, kind of like a football stadium, but it goes like a long hallway. So one of the stops we actually did on our trip was we went to that stadium hallway, and they have some of the costumes that the ladies wear during Carnival. And if you pay 5 reais, you get to put it on for however much time, and you get to take pictures with your friends. And you're actually in the spot where they do it, and we did it, and it was so much fun. So this is my second host family. The two of them, the boy beside me and the girl beside me, those were actually 2 other exchange students. But I used this picture because my family was the 4 of us, and there is always one of us taking the picture, so it was the only one with actually all of us in it. So I have my host mom and my host brother, and I called him my host nephew because he was younger than me and he didn't like that. But that's my host nephew. He actually, today, he's going to start his exchange in the United States. He's going to New York State, so that's incredible. So I was there for about 3 or 4 months. It wasn't as long as the first one, but it was a completely new experience. She used to be the president of our Rotary Club, so she taught me a lot about the language and the culture and all that stuff. It was incredible. Brazil is very well known for parties. It's part of their culture. It's the way that they are. They dress up like they're going to, I don't even know how to explain it. They're not going to pit parties. They're going to they're going out. Like if they're going to the bar, they're wearing their high heels and their skirts and their makeup, and they're doing their hair, and it looks like they're going to the red carpet, but they're just going to the bar down the street. And that's the way it is for everything. That picture in the center, those are actually people. That was a festival that I went to for a famous Brazilian singer, and I'm somewhere in that. I don't know where. Yeah, so they have a lot of traditions. For Brazil, Christmas is different. Christmas is not on the 25th, it's on the 24th. And if you fight about it, you will lose because it's on the 24th and not the 25th. I actually spent my Christmas and my New Year's with my best friend. She was a Danish exchange student, and her family really took me in a lot. In the first 6 months, I spent a lot of time with them, and they had me for both Christmas and New Year's. It was very different. We went to a hotel, and we had dinner, and we just kind of hung out, and then we went home. And that was kind of it. You kind of spend it with the people, you dress up, you go out, you take the pictures, you eat a lot, and then you go home. 25th, you sleep in. Like that, there's not really the same thing that we have here. For New Year's, they have a really cool tradition in Brazil so that you wear colors on what you hope for the next year. So if you're wearing red to the New Year's Eve party, you want love in the next year. If you're wearing yellow, you want money. If you're wearing, it's all these different colors. I can't remember what all of them are. But the main one that people generally wear, that was like the tradition from years ago. And the one that people have kind of adapted is that everyone wears white, and I believe it's hope. So in that middle picture in the bottom, that's actually us on New Year's Eve, going to the New Year's Eve party. And you go out on the streets, they close down the streets and they bring in all these stages, and it's just a sea of people in white. It's incredible. And then because you're on the coast, they have this tradition where you go out and you jump a certain amount of waves. So at 5 o'clock in the morning after you've been partying all night, everyone goes out to the coast and they jump in the ocean, and they are jumping these waves. And I believe it's 7 waves, and I don't remember what it stood for, good luck or something like that, but they went for it. Like, they went in, and it was cold. So I actually did a little bit of volunteer work while I was in Brazil. I don't really have a lot of pictures of it because it's kind of weird getting pictures of it. But I went around with a priest and a couple other exchange students one night, and we had this big pot of, I guess, like corn chowder, something like that. And we went around, it was in the back of his car, and all the homeless people on the streets, he would go out and he would feed them every single night. And he would go out, open up the back of his car, scoop them some soup, and move on. And he knew their names and he knew their stories, and he'd go out every single night and feed these people because nobody else did. And there's a lot of people on the streets. There's a lot of stray dogs. So we actually used to go out with him, and they really like foreigners. So they would, oh yeah, take a picture with us and all that. It's like, perfect, works for me. So we would go out and do that, and it's a really incredible experience because in Brazil there isn't quite a middle class, so there's a lot of people on the lower end as well. And you see that a lot on the streets, and it's incredible because then the rest of the year you're driving around and you see that homeless woman on the street and you know her story and you know her name. And a lot of them are scared because not a lot of people know that about them. So if you go over and be like, hey, how's it going? It makes their day and it makes them really happy. Actually, there was another man, I don't have a picture of it here. He used to stand in the middle of the street by the McDonald's in City, and he didn't have hands, but he had arms. So he would have this rope around his neck with a little thing, and as people would drive by him, he would hold out his little cup and people would drop money from the sides of their car. And it was actually on the way to our Rotary meeting, so every Wednesday when we were on our way to Rotary, we would go and put money in his cup. And it made him so happy, because a lot of people just drive by. And he was that one person that, at least the exchange students, we would always go and give him money. And you can just see the way, sometimes you would go out there and he wouldn't be there. And normally you would worry, but it was because he was okay that day. He didn't have to go out in the rain. He was good, you know? And it really makes you feel a lot better because going around in Dryden, you can't do that. We have different things, but we don't have that option to go and feed a homeless person on the street. So it was really, really nice. Try not to talk so much. Okay. So this is my third host family. My host mom, my dad, my brother, and my sister. Don't let my dad's face fool you. He is the funniest guy you will ever meet, but he refuses to smile for a picture. My sister, she actually was only there for about a week with me, and she went to do a different kind of an exchange program. She's a doctor, so she was doing a different kind of exchange program with that in England, in London, which was awesome. She actually she did another one before, and she was in Canada, so she was super excited. She's in love with Canada. I went in her room, there's Canada stuff everywhere. I thought I was at home. It was like the dollar store, it was just like Canada, 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 Canada. And they went and gave me a key for the apartment, and it was on a Canada keychain. I was like, wow. So these are the exchange students. There was 6 of us in the city, and they were like my family. We got so close. We showed up at the same time. We went to the same school. we had the same difficulties, we tried stuff, and we ended up leaving together, and it was all in about a week. We went to that airport every single day and bawled our eyes out because, like, we became like a different kind of family where by the end we would all get together and have sleepovers together and stuff because we were like brothers and sisters, and everyone knew it. You would never see us alone. There would always be another one there. And next year I'm actually planning a trip to Denmark to go and meet up with all of them again, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, who's paying for that?
He is. Okay. The second trip I did was the Amazon trip. So we actually spent about 10 days in the Amazon rainforest. We slept on, there was 3 boats that people would sleep in, and we were put into different groups to choose what boat you would sleep on. And at night we would put up those hammocks. We would hang out there in the day, but then at night there was, that whole thing would be full of hammocks, and we would all sleep like that, which was cool unless it rained, because it is hot, and if it rains, someone wakes up and they're yelling like rain, rain, and you have to jump out of that hammock and pull the tarps down to the sides, which you don't want to do in the middle of the night. But we were there for about 10 days, and one night we actually spent in the forest. We got on our little boats, we had our little backpacks and our hammocks, and we went into the rainforest and we put up our hammocks, we had a little bonfire, and we slept there. And it was a bit riskier than camping in Dryden, but it was good. I mean, we saw anacondas. The front picture there, that's me with an anaconda. And it was huge. I did not touch it. Yeah, we saw anacondas, sloths. We went out kind of alligator hunting, not hunting, but you'd go out in the boats, and then you'd find a baby alligator, and they'd pick it up, and you get to take a picture with it, and then you put it back and run away. So we did that. Yeah, we went to an Aboriginal tribe. I think I have another picture in one of the next slides. And they took this plant, and they would take it was kind of like ink inside, whatever it was inside. They use it to make designs on their arms and on their bodies and on their faces, and they would actually put it on our faces. So we'd sit there and they'd have these little Aboriginal children putting them on you, and it was really nice. In the top, I'll talk a bit more about it later, but that's me planting my tree. Every exchange student that goes on that trip, on the last day you go and you plant a tree to help the rainforest. Not going to talk a lot on this slide, but that is a pink dolphin, and we swam with them, and it was so cool. So now I'm going to talk about my tree. So when you go and plant your tree, there's this man that takes you everywhere, and he is one of those people with a heart of gold that doesn't have a lot. And you go to his house, and he walks around bare feet through the Amazon, and he'll tell you all these stories about how people are cutting down the rainforest, and he'll tell you all these things. And he'll give you a lot of information about the way that they use the rainforest as medicine. It's like, oh, if you eat this leaf, it's going to help you for this way. If you eat this leaf, you're going to be dead in 30 minutes. Like, he knows a lot about his home. So when we were planting our trees on the last day, I went and I asked him if he knew where the trees were from 4 years ago. Because if some of you remember, my brother Tyler, 4 years ago in 2012, he did an exchange to Brazil. He went on this trip and he planted his own tree. So I asked him, and it's the same guy every year, and I asked him if he knew where those trees were from 4 years ago, because I would like to show my brother how big his tree is. And he got so happy. He said, oh, come with me, and he takes me through this path, and he goes, this is where your brother's tree is. And I didn't know which one was my brother's, but that picture there, that's actually me standing with one of the trees so that you could see how tall it was. I'm not that tall, so it's probably about 5 feet, but it was an incredible thing, and he had tears in his eyes, and he wanted to take a picture with me because we were all going around taking pictures, and he said, take this and show it to your brother. So he took a picture with me, but he doesn't like smiling for pictures, so he'll kind of poke you in the side and laugh, and then they take the picture. So I was kind of surprised. I was kind of laughing at him. But he had tears in his eyes, and he was like, thank you so much. Go home and thank your family. Bring your brother back here and come see me, and like, thank you for all you do. Because he is so emotional about people cutting down the rainforest, because that's his home. That's where he lives. He doesn't live in a city. He lives in it. And I'll never forget that moment. I don't remember the exact words that he used, but just sitting there and seeing that something that you did and something that my brother did in the past made him so emotional and so thank you, that he was sitting there in tears. It really warms your heart. This classroom right here in the bottom corner, that is a classroom that every year on this trip, the exchange students go to this school and they raise money from paying for the trip and from little donations that we decide to give as well. Every year they put from that money a air conditioner into one of their classrooms. So they've done that every single year, and they've put an air conditioner in every single classroom of that school. So my group was actually the first one. They had already put air conditioners, so my group actually put a printer in that school. So now for the first time, that school has a printer. These are the boats that we stayed in. So there was 3 of them, and then there was another one that was kind of like the restaurant boat. You'd hop over, have your food, and hop back. But that's what my boat looked like. That was the Anaconda boat. Almost done talking. So this was my going away party. Because we all kind of left around the same time, my going away party was joined with myself, my Danish best friend, and another exchange student in our city, an American girl. We were all leaving, me and my best friend, we were leaving on the same day, and the American girl was leaving 3 days later. So we had everyone there kind of lives in apartments. We don't live in houses. So in the bottom of those apartment buildings, they have these open rooms kind of like this, where you can throw a meeting or a party or something if you want to. So our families kind of got together and arranged a little balloon wall, and they put up our flags. And my best friend's host mom, was actually owning a bakery, so she actually made that cake. And it was huge. It was like huge. So it was really nice. It was right before we left, and we kind of got to bring everyone together and say thank you and see. We have all our families in one room at the same time, and then have our friends from school and all that, and it was amazing right at the end. So this is the hardest part about exchange. This is when everything's over, you've done your adventures, you've experienced everything, and it's time to get on that plane and go home. And you bawl your eyes out. It is the most heartbreaking thing I've ever seen in my life, anything I've ever experienced. You make these connections with people, and you go through so much with them, and they're like your family. It's like you have another family, and they're so close to your heart. And then you have to say goodbye, and you don't know. You hope that you'll see them again, but you don't know. And the hardest thing is about exchange is after you say these goodbyes to people, it's also the place. Because they say it's not a year in a life, it's a life in a year. And it's true, because this is Dryden. This is where I'm from, and this is where my family is. Nobody can take that away from me. I can go travel the world, I can move to another place, and nobody can take this away from me because it's my roots. But you go there, you experience, you step out of your comfort zone, you take those risks, you accomplish so much, and you make that life for yourself, and then you get on a plane and come home. And once you get on that plane and come home, everything's different, everything's changed. You can go back, and those places are still gonna be there, but those people that you experience it with aren't gonna be there. It's like an empty place, and your families are there, and your Brazilian friends are there, but it's not complete, and it's not the same as it was when you're there. So that's why it's so heartbreaking when you have to say those goodbyes to people, because you know that that chapter in your life is over, and it won't be like that again. I'm done talking now. So I just want to say thank you so much, Rotary. I was really lucky. I kind of had 2 clubs at home. I know that I was sponsored by the club in Portage, which I'm hoping to get the chance to go and actually make a presentation for them. But it was kind of like I had you guys here too, so I was kind of lucky. I kind of got 2 for 1. And I just want to say thank you so much, because without you guys and without you guys giving that recommendation to the other clubs and looking for me, I wouldn't have had this experience. And I learned so much in this year that you can't learn in a book, and you can't learn it in a class, and you have to go out and step out of your comfort zone, be uncomfortable, and then you have to grow up, and you have to be better, and you get stronger. And everything that's so important and so amazing in life is right outside your comfort zone. And unless you go out and do it, unless you have that opportunity, then I wouldn't have had it without you guys. So thank you.